A tarot reader told my billionaire husband to divorce me. He did. 3 years later, he lost everything. The cards didn't predict his future. They destroyed it. And the woman behind them, she'd done this before. Before we begin, drop a comment to tell us which city you are watching from, and when the story ends, don't forget to rate us from 1 to 10 and subscribe for more stories like this. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the thrill. The tarot reader didn't just predict our divorce, she demanded it, and the billionaire I loved, he listened. I remember the exact moment everything changed. We were sitting in her velvet-draped parlour, surrounded by candles that smelled like jasmine and lies. She flipped the death card, smiled, and said, "Your marriage is poison. If you don't leave her, you'll lose everything." I laughed. He didn't. Within a week, I was signing divorce papers. Within a month, he'd replaced our wedding photos with tarot spreads. But here's the thing about believers. They don't question. They obey. And years later, when he'd lost his fortune, his health, and his mind, he finally came back to me. Not for love, for answers. Because the cards never told the future. They created it. And the woman shuffling them? She wasn't a mystic. She was a puppet master. Stay with me. Because what I found buried in her past will make you question every fortune you've ever been told. My name used to be on his lips every morning. Now it's written in a lawsuit. Let me introduce you to the 3 people who destroyed each other. First, there's me, Emily Carter, the wife who walked away without a fight. The woman everyone assumed was too weak to stay. But what if I wasn't running from my marriage? What if I was running from something far worse? Then there's Julian Cross, billionaire, genius, skeptic. A man who built empires on logic and data, until the day he sat across from a tarot reader and heard something that broke him. He traded spreadsheets for star signs, board meetings for candlelit readings. But here's what no one asks. What kind of man abandons his wife because a stranger flipped a card? Or was he already being controlled long before he walked into that room? And finally, Madeline Rowe, the tarot reader. Elegant, soft-spoken, unsettling. She called herself a spiritual guide, but her clients didn't just follow her advice, they worshipped her. So here are the questions that haunted me for years. Was Madeline a guide, or a parasite feeding on wealthy, desperate souls? Did Julian destroy our marriage, or was his hand forced by something he couldn't see? And why did I leave without fighting back? Was it fear? Exhaustion? Or did I know something about Madeline that even Julian couldn't accept? Because here's the truth no one tells you about fortune tellers. They don't need magic. They just need access. And Madeline, she had access to everything. What if the cards didn't predict his downfall? What if they engineered it? What if every reading was a carefully planted seed? What if she wasn't reading his future, but writing it? Stay with me. Because the deeper I dug into Madeline's past, the more I realized she'd done this before. Let me take you back. Before the cards, before the candlelit obsession, before everything fell apart. Julian Cross wasn't born into money. He built it, brick by brick, deal by deal. He was ruthless in boardrooms and gentle in our kitchen. The kind of man who could dismantle a competitor at noon and slow dance with me at midnight. I wasn't from his world. No trust fund. No pedigree. I was a high school teacher when we met. He said I kept him human, that I reminded him what mattered when the numbers stopped making sense. Our marriage wasn't perfect. He worked too much. I wanted more of him than he knew how to give. But it was real. Messy and honest and ours. Julian believed in control, spreadsheets, strategy, certainty. I believed in trust, in letting things unfold. That difference, it would cost us everything. Then came Madeline Rowe. It started innocently enough, a private reading, a gift from a business associate who swore she'd changed his life. Julian laughed about it at first, called it wealthy people nonsense. But he went anyway. Curiosity, networking, boredom. I went with him. Her penthouse was like stepping into a dream. Velvet curtains, soft lighting, the smell of sage and something sweeter I couldn't name. Madeline herself was unsettling. Not in an obvious way. She was elegant, poised, calm, but her eyes lingered too long, like she was reading something beneath your skin. She laid out the cards slowly, deliberately. The devil, the tower, the empress reversed. Then she looked at Julian. Not me. Only him. Her voice was silk. Your wife is blocking your destiny. I laughed. It sounded ridiculous, dramatic, like a line from a bad movie. But Julian, he didn't laugh. He stared at those cards like they were a diagnosis. That was the first time he chose them over me. And it wouldn't be the last. It started small. Julian cancelling dinner because Madeline needed to realign his energy. Then it was twice a week, then daily. I'd wake up at 2 a.m. and find him at the kitchen table, not working, not reading, just staring at tarot cards under lamplight. Moving them, rearranging them, like they were a puzzle only he could solve. His phone buzzed constantly, cryptic texts from Madeline. Mercury retrograde? Don't sign anything today. The moon is in your 8th house. Someone close is draining you. Trust the cards, not the voices that doubt them. I asked him once. Do you hear yourself? You're a billionaire taking orders from a deck of cards. He looked at me like I was the one losing my mind. This isn't superstition, Emily. It's strategy. Strategy. That's what he called it. I saw manipulation. He saw prophecy. And Madeline? She saw opportunity. Then came the prediction that changed everything. Julian's company was expanding into Southeast Asia. A massive deal. Years in the making. Madeline pulled the 10 of Swords, the tower, the moon. She told him, "This deal will destroy you, unless you remove the block." He asked what the block was. She didn't hesitate. Your wife. Not his competitors, not market risk. Me. She said my energy was heavy, that I was tethering him to the past, that as long as I was in his life, he'd never reach his full potential. And Julian, the man who built empires on logic, believed her. I remember the night he came home. Silent, distant. He didn't yell, didn't accuse. He just slid divorce papers across the kitchen table. I stared at them, then at him. You're really doing this? He wouldn't look at me. I need to protect what I'm building. And that's when I knew. I'd already lost him, not to another woman, to something worse. I signed. I didn't cry, didn't beg, didn't fight. Because what's the point of fighting for someone who's already gone? I packed a bag, left the house we'd built together, and walked away. But here's what Julian didn't know, what he couldn't know. Madeline had already planned the next move. She always did. Because this wasn't about saving his future. It was about controlling it. And I was just the first piece she needed off the board. If this story feels unsettling, comment "I'm still here." I want to know who's really watching. 6 months after the divorce, Julian's empire started cracking. It began with whispers, missed earnings targets, a deal in Singapore falling through at the last minute. Then the stock started slipping, slowly at first, then faster. The headlines came next. Cross industries under pressure. Billionaire's golden touch fading. Investors lose confidence in Julian Cross. The irony? It was the exact collapse Madeline had predicted. The one she said would happen if he didn't remove me. Except now I was gone. And it was happening anyway. His board blamed competitors. Market analysts pointed to shifting economic trends. Business insiders whispered about bad advisors. But through it all, Madeline stayed close, closer than ever. She was at his penthouse 3-4 times a week. Emergency readings, spiritual cleansings, protection rituals. She told him the universe was testing him, that he needed to trust the process, trust her. And Julian, desperate, unraveling, did. Meanwhile, I was rebuilding. quietly, away from the headlines, away from the chaos. I moved into a smaller home across the city, nothing glamorous. Just four walls and silence and the kind of peace I'd forgotten existed. I went back to teaching, had coffee with friends who didn't care about stock prices, watched sunrises without checking my phone. I didn't win the divorce. I survived it. And I didn't contact Julian. Not once. Because what would I even say? I told you so? That's not closure. That's cruelty. So I stayed silent, rebuilt myself piece by piece, and tried to forget the man I'd loved. But then, 18 months after we signed those papers, something strange happened. A journalist started digging. Her name was Claire Navarro, investigative reporter for a financial magazine. She'd been covering Julian's collapse, standard business story, until she noticed something odd. Madeline Rowe's name kept appearing, not in the press, but in the background. She was listed as a spiritual consultant on Julian's payroll, 6 figures a month. She had access to his calendar, his inner circle, his financial advisors. Claire started asking questions. Who was this woman? Why did a billionaire CEO have a tarot reader on retainer? And why did his downfall match her predictions so perfectly? Then Claire found something else. 3 other men, all wealthy, all successful, all former clients of Madeline Rowe. And all of them lost everything within 2 years of meeting her. Claire called me. I almost didn't answer. Unknown number. But something told me to pick up. She said, "Ms. Carter, I'm writing a story about Madeline Rowe, and I think you might want to hear what I've found." That phone call changed everything, because what Claire discovered wasn't just unsettling. It was criminal. Claire sent me files, dozens of them, financial records, bank statements, property deeds. And with every page I scrolled through, my stomach turned. Madeline Rowe didn't just read tarot cards, she read bank accounts. The luxury penthouse where she held her sessions, paid for by Julian. The designer clothes she wore, gifts from clients. The private retreats she hosted in Bali, funded through shell companies tied directly to the men she guided. Claire had traced it all. Madeline wasn't on Julian's payroll as a consultant. She was embedded in his life like a parasite. 6 figures a month. Access to his schedule, his legal team, his financial advisors. And here's the part that made my blood run cold. She wasn't psychic. She was strategic. Before Julian ever sat across from her, she'd already studied him. His business deals, his insecurities, his marriage. She knew he was a control freak, that he feared failure more than anything, that he was desperate to prove he was still the smartest man in the room. So she gave him what he craved: certainty, answers, a roadmap to success that only she could provide. She didn't predict the future. She created dependency. Every reading was designed to isolate him, to make him doubt everyone around him, his business partners, his board, me. And the more he doubted, the more he needed her. Claire found something else. A recording. Madeline had been careless at a private event, a spiritual retreat for high-net-worth individuals. Someone had left their phone recording. And on that recording, Madeline was laughing, drinking wine with another so-called spiritual guide. She said, "Belief is leverage." These people don't need magic. They need permission to do what they already want to do. You just frame it as destiny. The tarot cards, they're props. What matters is access. Once you're inside their life, you're untouchable. I listened to that recording 3 times, and then I forwarded it to Julian. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted him to know the truth. Maybe I wanted him to hurt the way I did. Maybe I just wanted him to wake up. He called me 2 hours later. His voice was shaking. "Emily." That's all he said at first. Just my name, like he'd forgotten how it sounded. Then, "The cards never spoke, she did." And in that moment I heard it. The crack, the breaking. Julian Cross, the man who built empires, had been dismantled by a deck of cards and a woman who knew exactly how to shuffle them. But here's the thing about revelation. It doesn't undo the damage. Our marriage was still over. His fortune was still gone. And Madeline, she was already moving on to her next client, because women like her don't get caught, they get rich. Until now. 3 years after the divorce, Julian lost everything. Not metaphorically, everything. The company collapsed, the properties were seized, the fortune he'd spent decades building, gone. And Madeline? She vanished. No forwarding address, no social media trail. Just gone. Like she'd never existed. Except she had. And the evidence was everywhere. Empty bank accounts. Shell companies dissolved. A paper trail that led to offshore accounts Julian would never see again. She'd taken it all. Slowly. Carefully. Legally. Because that's the thing about true predators. They don't break the law. They just bend it until you can't tell the difference. Julian ended up in a smaller apartment. Not the penthouse, not even close. Just 4 walls and the ghosts of every choice he couldn't take back. He called me one day. Out of nowhere. I almost didn't answer. But something in me, curiosity maybe, or pity, made me pick up. Emily. His voice was different, quieter, broken in a way money never could have fixed. Can I see you? I should have said no, but I didn't. We met at a coffee shop. Nothing fancy. The kind of place we used to go before the Empire. Before Madeline, before everything. He looked older, tired, like someone who'd been carrying weight he could finally put down. He didn't ask for me back. He knew better. He just said, "I'm sorry." And I believed him. But belief doesn't fix what's broken. I looked at him across that table and said, "You didn't lose me when you divorced me, Julian. You lost me when you trusted fate over love." He didn't respond. What could he say? Because here's the truth. Julian didn't just lose his fortune. He lost his ability to trust himself, to make decisions without needing permission from the universe, to believe in anything that couldn't be predicted or controlled. And me? I rebuilt, not into a billionaire's wife, not into someone chasing status or security. I rebuilt into someone whole. I have a small house now, a garden I actually tend, students who remember my name, mornings where I wake up and don't feel dread. I'm not rich, but I'm free. And Julian, he's still searching, still trying to find the moment it all went wrong, still wondering if the cards were real, if Madeline saw something he couldn't. But the cards were never the problem. The problem was believing someone else had more answers about his life than he did. Madeline didn't curse him. He cursed himself by outsourcing his choices. By trusting prophecy over partnership. By believing he was entitled to escape consequences if he just followed the right script. And that's the real tragedy. Not the money, not the empire. It's that he traded love for certainty and got neither. So I'll ask you this. Would you have spotted the manipulation? Or would you have believed the cards too? Because the scariest part of this story isn't Madeline. It's how easy it was for a brilliant man to hand over everything. His marriage, his fortune, his future, to someone who simply told him what he wanted to hear. And if it happened to him, it could happen to anyone. Even you. So let me ask you something. Was Madeline a villain? Or did Julian give her permission? Because the truth is, she didn't force him. She didn't threaten him. She just whispered. And he leaned in. Maybe that's the most terrifying part. Not that someone like Madeline exists, but that someone like Julian, brilliant, powerful, controlled, could be so easily led. So here's what I want to know. What would you have done in my place? Would you have fought harder? Would you have walked away sooner? Would you have seen the signs before it was too late? Comment below. Tell me. Because I'm reading every single one. And if this story moved you, if it made you think twice about who you trust, about the voices you let into your life, hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who believes love shouldn't need proof. Someone who's ever chosen faith over their own instincts. Because stories like this, they don't just happen to other people. They happen when we stop asking questions. When we stop trusting ourselves. When we hand over our power to someone who promises they can see what we can't. And if you think this story was dark, wait until you hear what happened when a billionaire tried to rewrite fate itself. That story drops next. Until then, stay curious, stay skeptical, and never let anyone tell you they know your future better than you do. I'll see you in the next one.